And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for Tuesday morning. IFR along the west coast here, well into the interior, all the way into the Kuskokwim Valley, and then pushing into southwestern Cook Inlet, into Kodiak Island, all the way back out to Atka, Adak Marginal, and then from there west back to IFR. Eastern interior, central and east side here, good VFR, Kenai Peninsula, into the northern panhandle. IFR right along the coast there on the central and south coast of the panhandle, and then some pretty good VFR up there along most of the Arctic coast. And for the afternoon, that's about the same there. Marginal VFR, say west of Wainwright, all the way down here across the west coast areas and extending eastward, all the way into the just about the northern Koyukuk Valley. Otherwise, staying VFR here in the interior, central and southern part of the state, right on down into the Barren Islands. And then you pick up some marginal VFR there just to the east. Marginal VFR for Kodiak, and maybe some IFR over the southern island there, Akiak, Sitkinak Island and those areas. And some IFR here over the eastern Bering Sea, Nunivak Island, Pribilofs, down into the Fox Islands and the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula. But notice the solid VFR flying conditions across the southeast coast, and then some mostly IFR for the western Aleutians. And moving on to the forecast for Wednesday morning, lots of IFR again for the Bering Sea and all along the west coast areas up to the western and even the central Arctic coast. But to the east up there, VFR, central eastern north slope VFR, and good VFR here in the central and eastern interior holding. Conditions starting to come down now. I got some marginal VFR sliding up into Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula with IFR up into western Prince William Sound. And you can see quite an area here from the Alaska Peninsula across Kodiak, extending eastward all the way into the southeast coast there, especially along the coastal areas with marginal VFR over the inside waters. And then for Wednesday afternoon, eastern half of the state, VFR, western half, marginal. That extends right out into the Bering Sea, down to Kodiak Island. Marginal VFR here for the southern Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound area, but mostly along or off the coast there from Yakutat on down along the southeast coast. And out west, marginal VFR with some IFR here along the central and western Aleutians. And for passes, Anaktuvik, VFR becoming marginal VFR on the southern approach, possibly in the later part of the afternoon. Again, about the same pattern there. Lower conditions, marginal VFR may show up on the southern entrance there in the afternoon hours toward evening. And Lake Clark and Merrill, though, good flying weather there, VFR. In fact, the entire Alaska range will be VFR tomorrow for the entire day on either approach. Windy, Isabel, Mentasta, Tanita, good VFR, Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels here showing about 10,000 feet meandering across the central and southern part of the state, 12,000 feet near the Pribilofs, down to the Alaska Peninsula, up into the southern Kenai Peninsula, and then back down to Dixon Entrance. Cooler air aloft of that upper level low tracking eastward here, so 8,000 feet or so just north of the northern panhandle, 14,000 feet out over the central Aleutians. Icing, look for considerable moderate rime icing here from the Arctic coast right on down across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta area, slowly moving eastward here, and then some possible lighter amounts of icing pushing into the far western Aleutians. And looking at the jet stream, upper level low at this elevation, pulling eastward there into the Yukon and Northwest Territories. So northwest winds 65 knots for the southeast coast. And then we've got southwest winds here across the northern Bering Sea, actually into the Chukchi Sea up to 75 knots. And then westerlies, 90 knot westerlies there over a small area of the southeastern Bering Sea, otherwise 65 to 75 knot westerlies over the Alaska Peninsula. And a little bit stronger along in just south of the west central Aleutians. Coming down to 9,000 feet, good southwest winds up to 50 knots here for the western Brooks Range out to the western Arctic coast. Lighter and more southerly down to 40 knots here over the southwest interior. Westerlies 40 knots there for the eastern Aleutians, turn southwest 45 there along the Alaska Peninsula, and then winds diminish on out to the west. Looking at higher pressure shifting eastward here into the eastern Gulf of Alaska, into Canada. So pretty light winds for 9,000 feet at this elevation. Light winds all the way down in toward Dixon Entrance as well. And 3,000 feet tomorrow. A band of strong winds here out of the south, mainly from the Alaska Peninsula across Bristol Bay, all along the west coast up to the western Arctic coast at about 40 knots there. Light over the eastern interior, Gulf of Alaska, light, southeast coast, light winds, and then some northerlies out here on the backside of this trough ahead of the ridge building out to the west there, but not too strong, roughly about 25 to 30 knots or so. St. Matthew Island right on down into the eastern Aleutians. From there, taking a look at the forecast turbulence. Moderate turbulence here from the central and western Arctic coast all the way southward across western Bristol Bay into the Alaska Peninsula.